Manhunt across Europe. Authorities look for a Tunisian man identified as a suspect in the deadly attack in Berlin. Fireworks tragedy. A chain reaction explosion rips through a packed fireworks market, killing dozens. The latest just ahead. Last-minute push. Less than a month remains in the Obama presidency. We'll look at what the president is putting in place as he prepares to leave office. And Pope Francis prays for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo, his appeal to all citizens of the African nation. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, December 21st, 2016.
An attack on humanity. That's what it is. It's an attack on humanity. And it's got to be stopped.
President-elect Donald Trump speaking this afternoon on the deadly truck attack at a Christmas market in Berlin. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to our viewers here in the United States and from around the world. I'm Wyatt Goolsby in for Lauren Ashburn. Trump's comments come as German authorities warn citizens across Europe that the 24-year-old suspect is still on the loose. A warrant is out today for Anis Amri, a Tunisian man. Authorities believe he has used 6 different aliases and 3 different nationalities. Germany is asking the public for its help in the manhunt, describing Amri as violent and armed. Authorities say he has been under surveillance for several months already this year. 12 people were killed and 48 wounded in Monday night's attack. Across the country, Germans are paying respects to the dead. Citizens are lighting candles and dropping off flowers at memorials set up in the market where it happened. Last night, the famous Brandenburg Gate in Berlin lit up in solidarity with victims. German Chancellor Angela Merkel also attending a church service to pray for the nation. As the search for the suspect spreads to other parts of Europe, Britain is stepping up security. London police put up road closures in the area surrounding Buckingham Palace when the popular Changing the Guard military ceremony was taking place. It's a security measure rushed into place in response to the Berlin attack. The Changing the Guard is popular with tourists and attracts large crowds. Police say the change is a precaution for the next 3 months and is not based on any specific intelligence. The threat level in Britain is at severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. President-elect Donald Trump meets with incoming National Security Advisor this afternoon on the violence abroad. It comes as the process of filling top jobs in his administration presses on. Trump opened his day by boasting about his election victory. Campaigning to win the Electoral College is much more difficult and sophisticated than the popular vote. Hillary focused on the wrong states. But a meeting today with retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, his choice for National Security Advisor, will likely focus on the deadly truck attack in Germany being investigated as terrorism. ISIS is claiming responsibility. Some Republicans are confident Trump's approach to the militant group will be effective.
This president is going to take the attack to ISIS, unlike President Obama, and he's not going to hesitate. And so in calling them out, putting them on notice that we're going to take it to it.
Today, Trump received the Presidential Daily Briefing, or PDB, something he only makes time for a few times a week. He says intelligence briefings from his staff are sufficient to fill in the gaps. Some in the GOP are urging him to change his mind.
This is a very important part of being the President of the United States, and hopefully at some point he'll begin to get into that routine and understand how important it is for him to understand all the threats that are confronting this country.
Meanwhile, the transition team says it expects to announce some White House positions in the coming days. Unfilled cabinet positions include Veterans Affairs and Agriculture. With just a handful of posts left, Trump is facing some criticism for a lack of diversity in his senior team. So far, there are no Hispanics among his nominations. With 1 month left in his presidency, President Barack Obama makes last-minute moves to push his agenda and secure his legacy. These include climate and the Guantanamo Bay prison. Jason Calvi joins us from the White House with more. Jason?
Why conservatives have blasted Obama's policies since he came to the White House about 8 years ago. And that criticism isn't stopping even while Obama is vacationing in Hawaii one last time as president. The House's Natural Resources Chairman, Representative Rob Bishop, says Obama's new order on the environment is not a moral calling, but an abuse of power to satisfy special interests. President Obama bans offshore oil and gas drilling in the bulk of U.S.-owned Arctic waters, also in parts of the Atlantic Ocean from New England to Virginia. He says it's to stop environmental disasters.
I share people's concerns about offshore drilling. I remember the BP spill in the Gulf of Mexico all too well.
The president claims climate change is the greatest threat facing our future.
We're not moving fast enough. And for the sake of our kids, we've got to keep going. America has to lead the world in transitioning to a clean energy economy.
But the country's largest group, speaking for oil and gas companies, says blocking offshore exploration weakens our national security, destroys good-paying jobs, and could make energy less affordable for consumers. President Obama's last-minute order is not easily reversible. The White House says the 1953 law it used doesn't give power for other presidents to undo Obama's actions. Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas and a former presidential candidate, responds on Twitter, "Yet another Obama abuse of power. Hopefully on that will be reversed exactly 1 month from today." President Obama is also taking last-minute action on Gitmo. The New York Times reports he's getting ready to send to other countries another 17 or 18 inmates now imprisoned at Guantanamo Bay. That will slash the jail population by close to a third, but it falls short of his campaign promise to close the prison.
It will be judged harshly by history, and I will continue to do all that I can to remove this blot on our national honor.
President-elect Trump has promised to not only keep the prison open, but to fill it with, in his words, some bad dudes. Also this week, Obama grants clemency to 231 people, mostly drug offenders. That's the most ever in one day. The White House signals there are more acts of clemency to come, all part of a broader criminal justice reform effort. These final moves aimed to solidify his agenda.
They're all issues that he's talked about a lot and that he's attempted to get action on, but all three are issues where he has been extraordinarily frustrated and unable to really move Congress.
These decisions come as Obama spends Christmas in Hawaii. And one of the largest legacies for the president is Obamacare, which Republicans are promising to repeal very early in 2017. And part of Obamacare, which has offended some Catholics, is the HHS contraceptive mandate, which requires most employers, to provide their employees birth control coverage on health plans. Wyatt?
Jason, back to the president's new ban on offshore drilling in the Arctic and some Atlantic waters. What has President-elect Trump said about that?
Well, his transition spokesman said he didn't have an answer, an immediate response right away this morning, but President-elect Trump has promised on the campaign trail to open up offshore drilling and to make sure that the economy, the energy, is produced right here in the United States.
And then, Jason, when is President Obama and his family returning to D.C.?
Well, they have this 2-week vacation in Hawaii. I know the president's golfing, as we showed you in that video. He's going to the gym, spending time at the beach, and then they're expected right back here at the White House January 2nd.
Jason Calvi reporting from the White House. Jason, thanks very much. Now to other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A 3-month-old boy and a 12-year-old girl are among the 31 people confirmed dead after a powerful explosion ripped through a fireworks market near Mexico City yesterday. Mark Irons reports.
A series of deadly explosions ripping through a fireworks market north of Mexico City Tuesday. Bystanders desperately running for their lives.
To tell you the truth, I do not know how I ran out of here. Everything was so horrible.
The fiery blast leaving dozens of people dead and scores more injured. After the explosions, the ground lay covered with splintered wood and twisted metal. The town of Tultepec is known for its pyrotechnics industry. The popular San Pablito fireworks market was stocked for the holidays and crowded with hundreds of shoppers, leaving loved ones of those missing fearing the worst. Victims were treated at area hospitals. 3 minors were expected to be transferred to a Galveston, Texas hospital for extreme burns. Since 2005, 3 similar blasts have ravaged the San Pablito market. Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Mark, thanks very much. The final phase of evacuations from eastern Aleppo is underway as residents leave former rebel strongholds. The Red Cross says all patients needing medical care have been moved out. Once the evacuations are complete, the government can assume full control of Aleppo more than 4 years after opposition fighters sieged large areas of Syria's former largest city. Thousands of fighters and civilians have left Aleppo since evacuations started last week. Pope Francis greets pilgrims and tourists in the Vatican today and makes an appeal for peace.
Rivolgo nuovamente un accorato appello a tutti I congolesi.
The Holy Father urging citizens of the Democratic Republic of Congo to be instruments of peace and reconciliation. A political impasse in Congo is fueling fears of widespread unrest in the Central African nation. It was the Pope's second to last weekly audience of 2016. He has had a busy Christmas schedule coming up. We go now to Mary Shevlin in Rome, who has a preview of that. Mary?
There's a lot on tap for the next few days as Christmas comes to the Vatican. Tomorrow, the Holy Father will meet with the heads of the Vatican offices, the Curia, and other department officials. He's done this over the past 3 years, as has his predecessors. It's an annual event, and he often talks to them of how to be effective leaders. So we'll be expecting to hear that from him tomorrow. Then at 12 p.m., he'll head to the Vatican's audience hall, where he'll meet with Vatican families. And so not only the employees, but their family members and children as well. So that's another Vatican tradition. Then on Friday, nothing special planned, the Friday before Christmas, but then on Saturday, it's midnight mass at 9:30 p.m. in St. Peter's Basilica with Pope Francis. On Sunday, the Holy Father will come to the facade, the balcony that's on the facade of St. Peter's at noon in Rome for the Urbi et Orbi blessing, a blessing he gives to the city and to the world. And then Monday, he'll pray the Angelus as well, the Monday after Christmas. So a very full Christmas schedule with Pope Francis, and definitely, if you can, follow along from home. Very beautiful liturgical ceremonies. You don't want to miss it.
Mary Shevlin reporting in Rome. Thanks, Mary. And you can see the Holy Father celebrate the solemn Mass of Christmas Eve in St. Peter's Basilica on EWTN December 24th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and again on Christmas Day at 4 a.m. Eastern. Coming up, an Associated Press photographer talks about capturing the chaotic scene when a gunman shot and killed the Russian ambassador to Turkey. And a 7-year-old girl whose tweets from eastern Aleppo captured the world's attention meets a world leader today. A judge in Illinois puts on hold a state requirement that pro-life health providers must give referrals to patients seeking an abortion. In a law passed earlier this year and slated to take effect January 1st, doctors and nurses were forced to provide abortion referrals. Now the law is halted for the time being. Lawmakers in North Carolina are meeting to see if there's enough support to repeal a 9-month-old law that requires transgender people to use the bathroom corresponding to the sex on their birth certificates. Democrats say the law limits the rights of transgender people in public places. A law firm dedicated to protecting religious liberty is in North Carolina working to fight the repeal.
Well, the focus right now really is on the privacy of every single North Carolinian citizen. HB2 is vital to ensure that no unlawful or coercive mandates can be enacted that would threaten the privacy of women and children in the state. And that's why HB2 is important, and that's why it's just a good law.
A team of Russian investigators are in Turkey tonight hunting for clues in the assassination of Russia's ambassador in the Turkish capital. Turkish officials say they are working closely with the Russians in a joint investigation. The biggest question is whether the Turkish policeman who shot the ambassador planned the attack alone. Investigators say that's unlikely. The photographer who captured these pictures says the attack was completely unexpected.
I saw him with the gun in his hand, raising his left hand and shouting Allahu Akbar, and he started to shout at the people, asking to go away. And the ambassador was lying on the ground, I think lifeless.
He says he thought he would die that day, but as a journalist, he decided to pull out his camera and do his work. The suspect was killed afterwards in a shootout. A Syrian girl whose tweets from inside Aleppo painted a desperate picture for all the world to see is now safe in the Turkish capital of Ankara.
I would like to thank you for supporting the children of Aleppo and help us to get out from war.
7-year-old Bana Alabed and her family met with Turkish President Erdogan at his palace today. The girl and her mother were evacuated from Aleppo earlier this week. Her mom started tweeting on her daughter's behalf in September. Christmas is a season of giving, and charities typically receive more donations during this time of year, but the need for charity extends throughout the entire year. Joining us now is Father Mark Pranitis, Special Assistant to the President, Catholic Charities USA. Father Mark, thanks for being with us. Why is it important for families to participate in giving year-round?
Let's talk about why it's important for families to participate first, so that, you know, the family is the place where we learn our faith and we learn how to behave in public and in society and all that. And it's by family engagement in the world that children are formed. Giving year-round, though, is so important because, you know what? Charities get so much during the holiday season, and yet we have needs year-round, and there are lessons to be learned year-round as well. It's why I encourage families to participate, not just at holiday time, not just at Christmas time, but throughout the year.
Okay, so let's talk about how practically to do that, because a lot of people may come up with that resolution, that New Year's resolution, but how do you actually take steps to practically do that year-round?
Sure. What I would say is, choose what it is that moves you, that need that's out there that makes you say, gosh, this really needs to be addressed. I feel called to do this. And then find a way to express it and make a commitment. I love New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you do, but I make them every year. So great. As a family, we're going to do something once a month. We're going to do something once a week. Whatever it is, make the resolution and find a way to fulfill that obligation that you've made to yourself and to God, candidly.
That makes sense for families. What about corporations and businesses? How do they benefit as an organization participate in that?
There are so many corporations and businesses out there that encourage their employees to be generous. But you know, we have that old saying about charity begins at home. I like to ask corporations to look at their corporate policies and say, what do we do for the people inside of our organization? Are we, in fact, facilitating them being generous to each other? If somebody gets very sick, if a child gets very sick, can I give my vacation time so that mom or dad can take more time off? That's a way to foster generosity inside of the workplace. Then when you say, gosh, let's go work on a house together as a corporation, more people are going to say, great, we're going to do that because they have fostered generosity.
And it's not all focused just on giving money, giving money.
Absolutely not. Money is essential, but people want to give their time and their skills so that they can share of themselves. Yes, please write those checks. I never want to discourage someone from doing that. But there is so much more that can be given, and people want to give it. Let's facilitate that.
Really quickly here, there are a lot of really good causes. How do people decide what's the best cause for them and to have the most impact?
My first question to people when they ask me that is, what moves you? When you look out at the needs of the world, what are you really touched by? For some people, it's the needs of children. For some people, it's the needs of seniors. There's all sorts of varieties out there. What moves you? Then, how am I going to help meet that need? So I would encourage people, contact the Catholic charities near you and ask them, how are they helping this population of people? How can I participate in that?
Father Mark Pranitis, Special Assistant to the President, Catholic Charities USA. Thanks so much for your insight.
My pleasure.
Denver's so-called angel of charity could become a saint. The Archbishop of Denver opened the cause for canonization for Julia Greeley, a former slave. She was born in Missouri and freed in 1863. She devoted her life to charity and mercy and spent most of her adult life in the Mile High City. To read more about Julia Greeley, visit our news partners at National Catholic Register. Up next, Restoring Christ the Redeemer, how you can help the Archdiocese of Rio de Janeiro repair one of the most iconic monuments in the world. And how much screen time is too much? Are parents giving good examples on this front? A recent survey by Common Sense Media reveals that parents spend an average about 9.5 hours per day on a screen. Children's media habits mirror their parents. Teens spend about 9 hours in front of a screen, and preteens spend an average of 6 hours. According to a survey of nearly 2,000 parents of children aged 8 to 18, 78% believe they are good media and technology role models for their children. But more than 50% voice concerns that their kids could become addicted to technology. Nearly 2/3 of Hispanic and Black parents express being highly aware of the content their children are viewing, compared with half of white parents. Melissa Henson, Programs Director at the Parents Television Council, joins us now. It's a national advocacy group promoting responsible entertainment. Melissa, the survey said 98% of parents think their they're good role models, and yet they're spending 1/3 of their day in front of some kind of a screen.
Right.
Seems like there's a disconnect here.
Right, there is. But I think we have to factor into that the assumption that most of that screen time is work-related. So they're checking email for work, or perhaps their job involves having to spend a great deal of time on the computer. But even so, we do have to be conscious of the example that we're setting for our children. Are we grabbing our phone every time we're standing in line or waiting for an appointment at a doctor's office? Do our kids see us uncomfortable being bored or alone with our thoughts? Are we constantly looking for distractions from our devices? And that's the kind of behavior that our kids are picking up on.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the kind of habits that kids can have if they're looking at a screen too long. You talk about the kind of problems like loss of sleep or using too much information on the internet and so that, but it's the same kind of problems that adults can have. So how important is it therefore that adults model that good behavior?
It's very important. And it has to be not just do what I say, but also do what I do. So if we're telling our kids one thing and then they're seeing us behaving in a way that's completely contradictory to what we're telling them, then they're gonna model their behavior on what they actually see us doing, not necessarily what they hear us saying.
So then, in your opinion, should there be hard and fast rules in families, individual households about when adults and children should just not be using these screens at all?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, device-free dinner. I think that's a big one. Leave the phones, the tablets, all the digital devices away from the dinner table, and use dinner time as a time to catch up, to talk about your day, to see where everybody's at in their lives. But leave the devices away from the dinner table. I would also suggest an occasional digital detox or a screen-free Saturday. Leave the devices at home and go out for a walk or do something in the park, but get away from those screens periodically and really engage with each other as loved ones instead of through the medium of electronics.
Those are two good tips. What about kids who just feel like they are addicted, like you just can't get away? Any more tips for people like that?
Yeah. Well, I think in those cases it's very important that we strip the bedrooms of any kind of electronics. No computers, no laptops, no phones in the bedrooms. When it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Don't let the electronics into the bedroom, and start to peel away some of those electronic devices as much as you're able to throughout the day. Start with bedtime and then start moving backward into the evening.
Melissa, how big of a problem is this nationally?
I think it is a big problem, and I think even talking to adults, I know, I took my son to the dentist's office yesterday, and we sat down in the lobby, and everybody in the waiting room is staring at a screen, and my son's saying, "Oh, let me look at your phone." Well, no, you don't need to be looking at a phone. You have to learn to be uncomfortable, or you have to learn to be comfortable just being
sit
alone with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Just sit or look at a book or a magazine, but you don't need the constant distraction of a phone, and it's a very hard discipline to adopt, but I think it's very important.
Very good. Well, like I said, it's all very important, and we appreciate the tips as well. Melissa Henson, Programs Director at the Parents Television Council. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, restoring one of the new 7 wonders of the world, the Archdiocese of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, is raising money to fix up the Christ the Redeemer statue. The well-known tourist site is 85 years old and is in need of repair. The statue has numerous cracks from lightning strikes. The Archdiocese has launched the Friends of Christ the Redeemer campaign to raise money. Maintenance is scheduled to start next year. For a link to donate, visit our EWTN News Nightly Facebook page. And for all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Wyatt Goolsby. Good night and God bless.